Welcome back to another video today, and today we will be talking about what the Lakers need to be doing this offseason. So we'll start off first talking about who the Lakers have under contract right now. We know they got LeBron, they got AD, they got Austin Reeves. They also got Kendrick Nunn, THT, Stanley Johnson, and Wenyen Gabriel. And then as of yesterday, we saw that Westbrook opted in to stay with the Lakers, which now means that their free agents coming up, which would be, they got 6 of them. It's Wayne Ellington, Kent Bazemore, Dwight Howard, Carmelo Anthony, Malik Monk, and Avery Bradley. So I'll get into both topics right now, but I think overall what the Lakers have with the players they're keeping, I think Wenyen Gabriel they probably should cut because he didn't do a lot last year, but we know Kendrick Nunn, he didn't play a single second for them last year, so we don't know what he could have been. He was one of the players that the Lakers relied on to get them far last year and possibly into the playoffs, or far into the playoffs. We also saw THT, he was hurt beginning of the year, but he had a good year the year before, and he's still young, so I think we give him a few years to develop. Austin Reeves, I really liked him. I think he is going to end up being something great because we saw he ended up with his hustle and just the way he seemed like he fit in with the Lakers. And let's see, who else did they have? They had, well, I'll just go with AD right now. All they need from AD is they need him to stay healthy. They need him to get 65 to 70 games through the year. And this is me if I'm the Lakers right now. I'm saying that with AD, we see if we can keep him this year. We'll see if he can do better this year. But if we can't get him, 60 to 70 games, or maybe not that, but if he misses like 40 games, 35, 40 games this season, I think we just have to say we can't count on you and that we just have to let him go. And then LeBron, too, LeBron's still the same player. LeBron is doing great. I've seen him in his games. He's, 37 years old, and his head's still over the rim. He's in his 20th season. Going into his 20th season, his head's still over the rim. So he's still incredible. And it seems like he's tended to back down, from, not trying to have an impact on, the Lakers' moves. It seems he said himself, they're all not in my hands. So I think the biggest thing right now he needs to do is he needs to let Darvin Ham now just let him just coach them. LeBron shouldn't try to, be a coach at all. Just let Darvin Ham coach them, and I think they'll do fine. So now, moving into the free agent discussion, I'm just talking about who I think they should keep and who I think they should move on from. I'm going to start off with Malik Monk. I was really encouraged by how Malik Monk played last year. Malik Monk was flat out amazing. He hit a ton of shots last year. Seemed like he got high on the rim many times, and he helped them a lot. He was one of the few players that looked like was actually playing well on defense. He did a lot what Caruso and KCP would do before. He would chase guys out to the three-point line, and it was mainly his energy that helped the Lakers so much, and I think they got to try to keep him. So now the other player I think they could keep is Carmelo Anthony. And because Carmelo seemed like he hit shots for them a lot. I saw him, he seemed like he scored a lot, but it's just he couldn't do much on defense. But I think you get defenders and you can keep him on your team. And we'll talk about now Dwight. Dwight had his ups and downs. He played well at times, but times didn't too. So I think possibly you keep him, but bring him off the bench. Bring in another starting center to help, and then he could be the backup for him. But then to go along, I think Wayne Ellington, you move on from him. He didn't do much last year. Kent Bazemore had trouble finding his touch, and Avery Bradley, he's just not the same player anymore that he was on the 2020 team or the same player he was before. So I think him you move on from also. So we know that the biggest question involving the entire Lakers offseason is whether or not they will keep Russell Westbrook. And I don't care either way, really. It just depends on what they get for him. Because really, what they need is defenders. And if it's my opinion, I don't think that he was the real problem. The only problem was that he couldn't shoot on offense and that he couldn't play defense either. But remember, it wasn't just him on defense. LeBron, there were times he wouldn't even get back on defense. And we have to remember this too. The Lakers were scoring last year. All they couldn't do was defend. So even since he couldn't shoot well, they were still scoring points. It was the fact that they didn't have defenders. So I just think that feel like we've brought it a little too much on Westbrook a little bit. We saw, towards the last part of the year, it seemed like he was going all out. He was playing great during the last part of the year, and I think we could keep him. I think it'd be good if we kept him. I just think the one thing this team needs to see is defenders. They need to get defenders, that's all. And it sounds like Darvin Ham knows how to maybe use him a little bit, maybe. So I think we just got to give Westbrook a chance under Darvin Ham, and I say we bring in more defenders, give him one more chance here to see what he's got. So that will bring us into our next topic, talking about the two guys that the Lakers missed out on before. So first one we'll say is John Wall. John Wall, I think that did hurt, losing him, but it would have been, depending on not if they had Westbrook or not, he could have defended well. Otherwise, I think scoring-wise, it wouldn't have been any better than Westbrook, but he would have helped him on defense, that's all. But the only problem is, I think, we see it's just whether or not he'll be able to stay healthy, which is the same thing with AD. But we're not getting him, but I'm not too worried about it. We just got to see what all that means. And I've said it now, the Lakers, all that means is they have to get defenders. But Kyrie Irving, I'm not concerned about it at all. I don't care at all that we missed out on him. He wasn't going to be better than Westbrook was. Because here's the thing. Even though Irving can shoot, we have to remember, and I said it earlier in this video, they were scoring last year. They were scoring 100 points a game. The only reason they were losing is because they couldn't stop anybody. Teams were scoring 110 points on them a game. And we have to remember, Irving, he can't play defense either. Irving would not be a better defender than Westbrook. So, if it's me, I'm thinking this fit would not be any better. So, and they're saying that still an Irving for Westbrook trade is possible, but whether if they get Irving or don't get him, I'm happy either way. I don't care either way. So now we will be getting into some of the moves that I think the Lakers should be making this year. And one thing the Lakers got to do is they got to pursue Matisse Thybulle, since there are rumors right now that the Sixers might trade him. Because here's why. Matisse Thybulle, he was able to shut down elite scorers last year. He was on the All-NBA defensive team last year, or the past 2 years, was an All-NBA first, or All-Defensive first team last season. I can't figure out how to say it, but I think he is exactly what the Lakers need. Even though he can't score much, they don't need scoring, because I've said it enough. They're scoring 100 points a game. They just couldn't stop anyone. So you put him in that lineup with Westbrook, LeBron, and AD, I think the Lakers get much farther into the playoffs than they did last year. And I think he would change the whole team in general if you brought him there. So now I think we just look at what they should offer for him. I think two guys they probably should offer are guys like THT, maybe Stanley Johnson, or possibly a guy like Kendrick Nunn even. But just in the end, the Lakers really got to pursue Matisse Thybulle. So we kind of saw the Lakers do this last year, but I think the main thing they need to do is kind of try to bring back like the pieces they had for their 2020 championship team. And they did this last year when they tried to bring back some of the players that were a part of that team, and I don't think it worked just because some of the players are older now, but I think just bring back players that are similar to the kind of players they had back then. And let's just look at who they had at guard back then. They had Rajon Rondo, they had Danny Green, they had Caruso, they had KCP, and then they had Avery Bradley until the bubble. And I'm going to look at who they have right now, just bring it similar to the team back then. Right now they have Westbrook, they have Malik Monk, they have Austin Reeves, and I would think, depending or not, I mean, as of now, he's on their team, so I would think THT, we'll say that this right now is similar to what they had back then. They just need like one more guy, and one other guy I really like. He played for the Thunder the last few years, and he hasn't been noticeable because the Thunder haven't been good, but a guy like Lou Dort. Lou Dort is a great defender. I've watched him in the bubble in that series against the Rockets. We all know he had that play where he tried to throw it off James Harden and missed him, but I watched that Game 7. He hit that 3 to tie the game, but also he shut down James Harden most of the game. And like I said, he's another defender who I think will chase guys out to the three-point line, just like we saw Caruso, like we saw KCP do before. And I think he would really help that Lakers team if they could get him. And I don't think he would request a bunch of money. I think with the calorie space we have, I think he could fit in there just fine. So I think the Lakers should target him a lot. So it seems like both the forward spot they have filled out pretty well. For the starting five, they got LeBron and AD there. And for the backup, as of now, I'm just assuming Melo and Stanley Johnson. But I think the one thing the Lakers need to do is find a replacement forward or like a backup forward that can play the same amount of minutes that AD can play if he's not able to stay healthy. Maybe, or if he just has to miss a few games. And looking at that, two guys I really like, Derrick Jones Jr. or Miles Bridges. Both those guys are super explosive. Both of them I see will be aggressive on defense. Both of them will get back. They will be, I think they will be great replacements for Anthony Davis if Anthony Davis isn't able to play. So I think they should target both of those guys and see if they can bring in one of them. So now the last thing I think they're really going to need is a good center. And I kind of said, I only think they keep Dwight if they can find a good backup for him. Find someone that like JaVale McGee they had on the 2020 team, or someone that plays the same way like Dwight Howard did. And I'm looking at two guys. Mo Bamba, I'm looking at him. He hasn't had much of a chance really because Orlando hasn't been great, but he could come in there and I think he could do great with that team. He could play the big center role there. Or a guy like Yusuf Nurkic. I don't know what Portland's going to do with him. Portland seems to be going to rebuilding mode, so I think he could come here and he could fit great in that starting five with LeBron, AD, and Westbrook, too. So I think they should try to target both of them next season. So the last thing before I'll just talk about the rookies they have. The one player with the draft pick they got was Max Christie, the one guy out of Michigan State. And saw he wasn't very big, but he seemed like he could shoot well. And also I'm guessing coming from Michigan State, he was a good defender because Michigan State seems like they could produce a lot of those. So I think that's a good pick. But also, two other guys they signed was Scottie Pippen Jr. and Sharif O'Neal for the Summer League. I'm excited to see what they can do And I think if they can live up to their full potential, they could have a huge impact on what the Lakers do next season. So hope you guys liked the video. If you did, please click like and subscribe. And in the comments, let me know if you guys disagreed on me on what I think the Lakers should do over the offseason.